One day we were getting ready to do some painting around the house. So we threw on some old clothes because, as many of you know, painting can get kind of messy.
But when I looked in the mirror, I realized that the old clothes already had paint on them from previous times we had done that kind of housework. And it reminded me that I was able to get it done now because I had prior experience. I could do it now because I had already done it before. I could accomplish it now because I had already accomplished it before. I could get through it now because I had already gotten through it before.
The previous paint stains on the old clothes were evidence that we've been there before.
Likewise, so many of us have life stains from our previous life experiences that are just like those old paint stains that we may not always like talking about or thinking about because they could be from some ugly memories.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, old painting and housework jeans look really bad. I mean, I can't wear them out to dinner or anything else like that because I wouldn't want anybody else to see them because they don't really look that good.
Similarly, our life stains may not always look good, and we may not always want everybody to see them or know about them. But they can act as reminders in our mind, reminders in our heart, reminders in our spirit, reminders in our soul that we can get through this current thing because God got us through that last thing. We can get over this present struggle because God got us over that last struggle. We can get past the trouble of now, just like God got us through the trouble of then.
Sure, the stains of our past are not always pretty, but those old stains means you overcame. Those old stains means you are still standing. Those old stains means you're still here. Those old stains means you live and you learn. Those old stains means you are not who you used to be. Those old stains means that you've been there before.
But even though you made it over, even though you made it out, even though you're a survivor, you may have some survival scars mentally and emotionally, maybe even physically, that remain in your life. But that's okay. You may have the blemishes, the marks, the stains that show what you've been through, but that's all right. Be thankful for those stains because they represent the blessed fact that God has sustained you through it all.
The Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4:8-9, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed.
You see, Paul knew a thing or two about scars and stains because Paul had his fair share of troubling life experiences. He says in 2 Corinthians 11:24-27 that he was whipped 5 times, beaten with rods 3 times. He had stones thrown at him. He was shipwrecked 3 times, spending a whole day lost in the open sea. He was in danger in the city and in danger in the country. He even says in verse 27, I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Basically, Paul was just showing that he's been there before.
But somehow in all of that, even with the bothersome and troublesome thorn in his flesh that would not be removed, Paul shows that those stains, those weak points, were actually strength points in the hands of God. He says in 2 Corinthians 12, but he, God, said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardship, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Your scars, your stains are not a sign of weakness, but of strength. A sign that what didn't kill you made you stronger. A sign of the strength of God within you to pull you out of the test and into your testimony.
So like Paul, when you've been there before, you learn how to lean and depend on Jesus. When you've been there before, you learn that he may not always keep you out of the storm, but he will always keep you in the storm. When you've been there before, you learn that it may not always look good or feel good, but God will always work it for your good. When you've been there before, you learn that he hasn't brought you this far just to leave you now. When you've been there before, you learn that you never would have made it without him. So you don't have to resent or regret the stains of your past, but you can rejoice that you know for yourself that the power of God can turn your weakness into his strength. Yes, you can become a living witness for his glory when you've been there before.